Welcome to From the Shed End podcast with myself, T.Dot. As always, thank you very much for joining me. Before we get into the content, please make sure you like, share and subscribe and comment. Let me know your thoughts about what we're going to discuss today. Now, there isn't actually much to discuss, unfortunately, because of some weirdo journalists who decided that they wanted to ask Thomas Tuchel the same question 4 times, and in the hope that they were going to get a different answer from the first answer that Thomas Tuchel gave them in the first place. So obviously Thomas Tuchel was there to answer questions around Luton, 7:15 tomorrow, FA Cup. He got asked more political questions in terms of his thoughts on the ongoing issues in the world at the moment, and rightfully so. He gave an answer which I felt was justified, especially at the end of the questions, the 4th time it been asked. His outburst was basically, I'm privileged, I don't necessarily have a different answer to give you, have no real first-hand experience of war. So it's a difficult position for Thomas Tuchel to be in the first place due to the ownership of the club, having to manage the day-to-day day-to-day staffing and coaching of a team as well, a high pressure job as it is. So to be asked the same question 4 times, I think that was only going to be one outcome when you ask that to any person, not just Thomas Tuchel. Could have been any manager in the Premier League that got asked that question. But just in terms of the game itself, Thomas Tuchel did give us a bit of an insight into the game off the back of the Carabao Cup final. He did say obviously there was a lot of overusing of certain players. I think he alluded to the fact that Reece James was expected to only play 20 minutes of the game. He obviously went on to play 20 minutes of the normal game plus an additional 30 minutes of the extra time as well. So I think there is some injuries that we need to worry about. Thomas Tuchel didn't really go into too much detail about them. So it's going to be difficult to understand what team we're going to be putting out tomorrow. I do think there's enough players who are coming back into fitness. You look at Trevor Chalobah. You'd like to think maybe Reece James should potentially start. You want to try and see him get a few more match minutes underneath his belt. Big game against Burnley coming up at the weekend as well. So you want to hope he might get a few. But then there are players like Ross Barkley, Saul Niguez is another player that you might see. Timo Werner. Is this an opportunity for Romelu Lukaku to come back into the team and maybe just score a few goals against a lower league team? Maybe just to give him a bit of confidence. I don't know. But in terms of the team that we might see, there was no intention that Thomas Tuchel was even in the mood to give us any of that today after the questions that were asked of him. But in terms of Luton, it's going to be for me, it's going to be a difficult game. We take these lower league teams for granted. You look at Plymouth, it was still a difficult game. They took us into extra time as well. So it's a tough one. It's going to be a tough game. I don't think it's going to be as clear cut as some people might think. There will probably be still some hangovers from the cup final. Thomas Tuchel was asked a question around Mason Mount and is he to blame? He did say that the team played very well. No one should feel like they need to be blamed, but you will, I'm sure, as an individual, as a professional footballer, you will hold some of that responsibility on your shoulders. So I think this is a brilliant game to bounce back from. I just don't think we can underestimate Luton. They are doing relatively okay, I think, in their league, but I do think we need to take the game as serious as possible. As I said, I don't think it's a game where I'd throw the likes of Harvey Vale into it and Lewis Hall, those kind of players. I think we need to treat this game with the respect that the competition deserves as well. Yes, there'll be changes. Maybe we might see Kennedy come into the team. We might see Reece James start. We don't know, because obviously Azpilicueta came off in the cup final as well. So there's a lot that I think we need to unpack, which I was hoping to get out of the press conference, but like I said, it was like watching Sky News or BBC News, being asked questions that unfortunately they're asking the wrong person. Thomas Tuchel isn't the person to answer those. But just in terms of a bit of transfer for news that came out this morning, according to some sources, Cesar Azpilicueta has been offered a contract by Barcelona. he has the cards in his hand. He has an opportunity to leave Chelsea at the end of this season. Barcelona have obviously been sniffing around Azpilicueta for some time now. The more that the story starts to go on and develop, you do sense that there is some truth or reality to the fact that he might leave. Would I be disappointed that he leaves? Of course. I feel like he's a player, he's a Chelsea legend. You know, I don't think anyone who's watched Chelsea over the years, you can go back to, you know, during my time, obviously Paulo Ferreira, Dan Petrescu, you know, those sort of players when I was growing up. But I put Azpilicueta in that group as well. You know, I think he's a brilliant servant to the club. Would I like to see him stay 100%? But I think, you know, has he got any more to give at Chelsea? He's done what he came to do. He's conquered something that not even John Terry was able to do by winning every club competition available to him. So in my opinion, no, he's done what he needs to do. It's a decision that he needs to make for himself. It'd be sad to see him go, but at the same time as well, I think if he does go, he'll get the best reception. You know, I think our last game's Watford, so he'll get the best reception at that game, I'm sure. And I'm sure there'll be, you know, talks of him returning in some sort of exhibition match as well, sometime maybe in the summer as well. But another player who seems to be warming up to the idea of leaving is Andreas Christensen, who we've spoken about on this channel and on our podcast as well on numerous occasions. You know, I think he goes. I think he's got to go. I think, you know, the fact that he's kind of out the limelight a bit more, as Rudiger's kind of in the limelight, I think there's an opportunity for Christensen to move on. Again, would I like him to say? Of course, you know, I think he's been integral in terms of what he's needed to do under Thomas Tuchel and previous managers as well. You know, you think back to some of the early days, especially when he made his debut and came into the Premier League as well. You know, he was a solid defender, and he's a very impressive defender for the age that he was at the time. So it'd be a shame to lose Andreas Christensen, but I do think, you know, as I've said about many other players in the past, if they're not here to play for the badge and they don't want to play for the team, then there's only one option, and it's the door. You know, it's the door. Leave and go and get your football that you want. But you know, of course, it's going to be disappointment. It's hard to replace certain players, and you know, you look at Cesar Azpilicueta. Yes, we have Reece James, but we've seen what that can do. You know, if you lose him this season, you know, we do need that quality and depth that we've spoke about on this podcast before as well. So it is going to be a difficult transition if we do lose those two key players in Christensen and Azpilicueta. I am confident that we will bring in players that can suitably fit into the team to an extent, and obviously that's going to take time for them to gel with the team and understand how Thomas Tuchel wants them to play. But I'm confident that in the summer we'll get that sorted, but we have to wait and see. Maybe Cesar Azpilicueta throws a spanner in the works and decides to stay. We don't know. And of course, we've still got Rudiger's contract up in the air as well. But I'm slightly not too concerned about Rudiger. I feel like he's one of those players that does want to stay at the club. And you know, if he does leave, then of course there's a massive gap there. But we do have Thiago Silva still with the club. So as I said, I think on a couple of videos ago, you know, for me, we've got him for a year. I would build my defense around him. You know, anyone who comes into that team over the next 12 months or so will ooze loads of experience from Thiago Silva. So I'm not entirely disappointed if we do lose a Christensen or we do lose Azpilicueta. But unfortunately, yeah, you know, we didn't really get into the FA Cup. I do expect us to win. Predictions is going to be really hard to judge. You know, as I said, Thomas Tuchel didn't really go too much into to team news, team selection. He did say there was a lot of injuries off the back of the Carabao Cup final that will need to be assessed by the medical staff. So I think it is a case of just seeing who is fit, who's available. But I am confident. I don't think, you know, there's any real desire to see us lose. I don't think there's any way that we should be losing this game, but I do think we need to respect Luton just the way that we potentially didn't respect Plymouth as well. So I think we need to respect Luton. You know, it's going to be difficult. Obviously, I think as Theo mentioned, if you haven't already, go and listen to our latest episode on Apple or Spotify. But as Theo did mention on there, you know, Jamal Edwards, who sadly passed away recently, was born in Luton. and grew up as a Chelsea fan. So hopefully the two clubs can come together, or the two sets of fan base can come together, just to show their remembrance of Jamal, who was, for me, a massive part of my life growing up as well. So it'd be nice to see the clubs do something, or at least the fans, in tomorrow's game. But I am confident for a win. I'm going to go out there and say 2-0. In terms of predictions, I know I said I wasn't going to do that, but I did. But yeah, we're going to be back, of course, match reactions, all of that stuff, a new podcast episode at the end of this week as well. But don't forget to subscribe to the channel, let me know your thoughts in the comments as well, especially about Thomas Tuchel's press conference, because I'm interested to hear what people's opinions are of that. Is there a right or wrong way to ask that question? Should they be asking that question to Thomas Tuchel in the first place? Just let me know your thoughts in the comments. But this has been T.Dot as always. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, stay safe.